Our story starts showing our main character Kazuya, deep in his thoughts, remembering his grandfather's final wish for him to start a family. Just as our boy is fondly reminiscing his time with his grandfather, he experiences a strong gust of wind and, as if magic, he begins to fall. Not understanding what's happening, he instinctively calls for his grandfather and suddenly lands. Stood in front of him, he is met with a man dressed like a king, referring to him as Hero. Adjusting to his surroundings, our boy looks forward to see the king stood next to the queen, and unexpectedly asks the MC why he is looking at him the way he does, and if he's upset the king summoned him to his world. The king notes that he seems very calm in this situation, which to the king is enviable. To this comment, the king's right hand interrupts as if to move the conversation along. However, the king's comments seem to amuse the queen along with some of his guards without consequence, which gives our boy the impression that he is a well-natured man. Our boy, looking to get answers, questions that if he's the hero, that must mean there is a demon lord invading. Surprised. The king, queen, and advisors look at our MC in shock. What was just a guess from our boy turned out to be the situation of the kingdom exactly. The king explains that this world is made up of the supercontinent of Landia. In addition to humans, this place is populated by beastmen, elves, dwarves, and dragon newts, among other races. Within this continent, there existed countries large and small where these races coexisted and where there was discrimination. However, around 10 years ago, in the far north, a dimension called the Demon World appeared, and various monsters poured out, throwing the northern countries into chaos. The countries formed a punitive alliance to fight the demons, which was annihilated. While the advance of the demons had stopped for the time being, the forces of mankind had no decisive way to turn things around. The country that our boy had been summoned to is called the Elfrieden Kingdom, a medium-sized monarchy in the southeast of the continent. This country was open to all, with no discrimination, in which all races were given citizenship, and since they didn't border the Demon Lord's domain, the country was fairly peaceful. The kingdom's problems came from domestic and international fronts. On one hand, many people who had lost their homes due to the Demon Lord's domain expansion had come looking for refuge, and on the other, relations with the Grand Chaos Empire, the largest country on the continent, which also bordered the Demon Lord's domain, were tense. Being the leading offense against the Demon Lord's domain, the Empire was now requesting war subsidies from other countries, and the economic situation of the country was making it difficult to pay them. So as a compromise, the Empire had asked the Elfrieden Kingdom for military assistance instead, in the form of a hero summoning. Understanding his situation, our boy asks the apologetic king what he intends to do with him. The king, hesitating to hand the MC over to the Empire, confuses our boy. Marx, the prime minister and the king's top advisor, interjects to explain that the power difference between the two nations means the Elfrieden Kingdom simply cannot refuse the Empire's requests. The MC then asks what a hero is, to which Marx replies, the hero is the one who leads a change of an era, which alters our boy's previous understanding of the title, not just someone who defeats the Demon Lord. Realizing there was not enough information to make immediate decisions, Kazuya requested a private meeting with the king and the prime minister. He asked for all available records on the country, with particular focus on balance of payment reports, agriculture, forestry, economy and trade, industry, land, infrastructure, and transportation, suggesting that, with this knowledge, they might be able to secure the funds needed to satisfy the Empire. Our boy went through all of the records, asking questions regarding every minute detail so as not to miss anything, creating new policies, which the king took a liking to rather quickly, to the point it seemed suspicious. 2 days after the meeting began, the king had become a lot brighter and more cheerful, so much so that it became the talk of the castle. His face was that of a man who had come to a decision, and the following day, the king addressed his subjects, announcing that he is abdicating the throne and entrusting the kingdom to the summoned hero Soma Kazuya, leaving everyone, including our boy, in shock. And, if that wasn't enough, he had also announced the engagement of the princess to Kazuya. We see the king being fed cake by the queen when suddenly the door slams open. It's Liscia, the princess, questioning how the king could give up his throne so quickly. The king replies that it became clear, once he met Kazuya, that he was more fit to lead this nation. Furthermore, being upset that they had decided on her engagement without her knowledge or consent, the queen interjects her protest and recommends that she meet Kazuya before she makes any decisions. As Liscia makes her way to the office, she can already see the effect Kazuya has had on the staff, noticing that just by seeing how hard Kazuya works, they are motivated to work harder too. Liscia finds herself at the office to see mountains of paperwork everywhere and a room full of advisors, with someone behind the largest pile of paperwork in the room, on their desk, almost hidden. Kazuya unknowingly starts assigning tasks to the princess, not knowing it's her, asking first if she can read or do math, and if she can, then to help out. Initially upset, she protests, but Kazuya rebuttals that it's a royal order, to which she obeys. This is her first impression of Kazuya. Baggy eyes, buried in paperwork, diligent and overtired. This is her fiancé. Kazuya gives her a task to find any misplaced money as they go through the records, explaining that they are looking for any sort of embezzlement disguised as investment or any mismatched funds, and that anything they find, they will then ask the perpetrators to pay. If they can't, they will take any assets equal to the amount. After some time, Kazuya tells the girl that she can take a break if she's tired, to which she replies, "That's not it. She hasn't introduced herself yet." She introduces herself as Liscia Elfreden, the daughter of the former king. Kazuya stops writing and looks up, eyes wide, repeating, "She's the princess?" Kazuya then introduces himself as technically the new king. Liscia then teases him that she's not a princess anymore since he usurped the throne, meaning her current position is unclear. Liscia questions what happened for the king to abdicate the throne to him. Kazuya explains that during the meeting between him, the king, and the prime minister, he explained the need for reforms in certain areas and what the future direction should be for the kingdom. After this, the king took on a ponderous expression, and the next thing he knew, the king had pushed the throne onto him. Liscia, slightly embarrassed, apologizes. Kazuya explains that she doesn't need to apologize. If anything, she's a victim, suddenly finding herself engaged to him. He explains that she doesn't need to worry about the engagement, as he's just holding on to the throne for now while he fixes the kingdom's issues, and they can tear up the engagement. Surprised, she changes the topic to the funds. She asks whether he can secure the funds. He replies that he has already secured the funds for the empire, and that now he's just looking to find more funds for his reforms, surprising her entirely, since the empire had asked for the equivalent to the kingdom's annual budget. He reveals that he sold off a third of the treasure vault, enraging her, as she thought he sold off historical and cultural items. Kazuya calms her by revealing that he had put thought into what to sell and keep. He had only sold items that had monetary value, and that he had split the items into 3 categories. Category A had national treasures with significant cultural or historical value. Category B had items with only monetary value, and Category C had magical items that were classed as weaponry. Liscia questions that if there are more funds available, then they should go to the military. But our boy reveals that this would be counterproductive, as it wouldn't solve the core issues that the kingdom is facing, which could lead to more problems if they're not fixed, like losing the support of the people. Liscia objects, saying the people love the kingdom and they would never riot. Kazuya tells her not to be an idealist and that patriotism can't feed empty stomachs. Kazuya then musters the energy to finish the rest of the work, revealing his magical ability to transfer his consciousness into objects and control them, or get work done faster. Later, we see an exhausted Kazuya, sat back in his chair after working non-stop, in a room filled with sleeping advisors. Kazuya approaches the sleeping princess and pats her head affectionately, thanking her for her hard work, waking her up from her deep sleep. Greeting her, she asks if it's already morning. Concerned, she notices that Kazuya still hasn't rested, to which he says he'll rest later, but for now would like her to accompany him somewhere. Kazuya and the princess explore the streets of the kingdom on horseback. The MC comments that this would have been impossible in the other world, prompting Liscia to ask if Kazuya left anyone behind, any family or a lover. Kazuya replies that there was nobody. His last relative was his grandpa. Kazuya said there is nobody waiting for him, so he doesn't feel like there's a hurry to go back. Just as they're talking, the horse moves suddenly, making Kazuya wrap his arms further around the princess's waist and pull her close, making the girl flustered and red. They go out of the kingdom's boundaries and arrive at agricultural fields. Kazuya tells the princess to look closely. He explains that these cotton fields are the reason for the country's food crisis, continuing that all of the farmers started harvesting cotton for quick profits when demand for cotton was high, leaving the kingdom in a food shortage. Continuing that importing food has other costs, like transportation costs, which also add to the rising cost of food, putting pressure on the people of the kingdom. Liscia falls to her knees out of guilt, feeling as though she had let her people and the kingdom down by not noticing this sooner. Our boy reassures her that he has already secured the funds to fix this, and that she doesn't need to worry. After seeing how amazing the MC is, the man she is destined to marry, she blushes in happiness that this is the man she is to be wedded to. Moving to the next scene, our boy contemplates that the technology of this world is all over the place due to mysterious creatures and the influence of magic in daily life. The MC ponders that where technology is absent, solutions are created with magic. They don't have gas, but use fire magic to cook. Instead of aqueducts, their wells use magic to draw water. Heavy luggage is carried on carts drawn by large creatures. They fly through the sky on wyverns. Steel battleships are drawn by sea dragons. Aside from that, their civilization is in the late Middle Ages or early modern period. Kazuya notes to Liscia that agricultural reforms don't happen overnight, but until they do, they will need to increase food imports from other countries to compensate for the shortage. Liscia reminds our boy that he said the imports are expensive, so people will hold back from buying things. But, as a temporary solution, Kazuya says that they will resell the items within the kingdom, explaining that they will lose money on the tariffs, but they will need to bear with it for now, till they can figure out a replacement for the cotton fields as a new moneymaker. Later, back at the castle, Kazuya and Liscia find themselves in the cafeteria for lunch, to which Liscia questions Kazuya that since he is the new king, why are they eating in the same cafeteria the guards and maids use? Thinking that since they are engaged, everyone may think this is a rendezvous. Liscia goes red at just the thought, telling Kazuya that the curious stares of everyone hurt. Kazuya says not to let it bug her, and that in a time where they are trying to be as frugal as possible, they cannot afford to waste money on special meals, stating they can use the saved money towards the economy. Just then, a guard by the name of Ludwin approaches the MC and princess, commenting that they seem to be having fun. Addressing the princess, he mentions that it's been too long, and, in a teasing tone, mentions that maybe he should call her queen now, making Liscia go red. After the light banter, Liscia introduces Ludwin to Kazuya, explaining that he is the captain of the royal guard. Kazuya thinks that this is a very important position, since it means Ludwin is responsible for the security in the capital, Parnum, and at Parnum Castle, and he also commands the Forbidden Army, the king's personal armed force in times of crisis. Kazuya introduces himself as the new king of the country. Ludwin comments that he has heard rumors of Kazuya's hard work. Returning to his previous thought, after being introduced to Ludwin, he recalls that the military control of the rest of the land, sea, and air forces lies in the hands of the three dukes. Duke Georg Carmine, general of the royal army, a beast man with a lion's mane. He commands with a fiery intensity, striking fear into enemies. Duchess Excel Walter, admiral of the Royal Navy, a member of the Sea Serpent race, an incredible woman, adept not only at battles, but politics too. Finally, Duke Castor Vargas, general of the Royal Air Force, a dragonoot and a lord of the skies who leads the stars of the Royal Army, the Wyvern Knights. In exchange for territories, duchies, within the country, where they're given self-rule, they swear fealty to the country, and they and their families risk their lives to protect the land. But at present, the three dukes, with their great love and respect for the former king, have not yet recognized our MC, who, from the outside, seems to have usurped the throne from their liege, which is what currently worries our MC the most right now. Breaking Kazuya's train of thought, Ludwin arrives with his plate and asks the new king and princess if he can join them for breakfast, which our boy agrees to. Ludwin asks about the current state of things. Kazuya expresses that, apart from the prime minister, all of the former king's advisors, who he inherited, are completely useless, and he wishes for subordinates, or retainers, who will say it like it is. Ludwin states everyone in a position of power, or leadership, tends to wish for similar things when it comes to subordinates, explaining that a lot of graduates from officer schools wish to be taken in by one of the duchies. However, mentioning that they did get somewhat of a mad scientist transfer in from the weapons department, who Kazuya expressed a lot of interest in meeting. Still in frustration about his useless advisors, Kazuya asks Liscia how they usually recruit people. She explains that they hire through personal connection or through written exams. Kazuya asks how much of the population knows how to read and write. Liscia says around 50%, which is considered average in this world. Getting up from his chair, he questions, 7/10 of the population can't take the exams? How many diamonds in the rough do they plan on letting go unnoticed? Thinking this country really needs to be fixed from the ground up. Kazuya calls for Liscia. He explains he has a plan to use the Jewel Voice to gather personnel. The Jewel Voice is a magical broadcaster used to notify the people of the kingdom, no matter how far or wide, of news about or within the kingdom. They make their way and soon arrive at the Jewel Voice. Liscia explains past kings normally use this to unveil a new constitution or to declare war on other nations, but he'll be the first to use it to gather capable people. Kazuya gets ready, and the broadcast has started. Addressing the kingdom, people have already gathered in the center of town in every city that is part of the kingdom, far and wide. Kazuya, as the new king of this country, says, "If you have a gift, I will put it to use," going on to explain that this country is facing a crisis of unforeseen proportions, the food crisis, and, as a result, the economic crisis that has followed. The increase of refugees from the lands taken by the Demon Lord, the rising refugees from the Demon Lord's influence, the Empire expanding its influence, and neighboring nations looking for opportunities to pounce. He states that the former king saw these issues as something beyond his capabilities of solving, and so had abdicated the throne to him, stating that in more peaceful times, the former king would have had the capacity to be a great ruler. Liscia thinks that's giving her father too much credit. Kazuya continues that these are troubled times, and in these times, they do not need rulers of saintly virtues, but rulers who will get their hands dirty and stubbornly do what it takes to survive. Which is why the former king has entrusted the future of this nation to him, because he is tenacious, and in this regard, he was superior to the former king. Kazuya states he is currently in the process of launching many reforms, but they face an overwhelming lack of capable people. And so, he says, if you have a gift, he will make use of it. He states it doesn't matter what it is. As long as you can say you are better at this than anyone else, he will make use of your skills. Age, class, origin, race, gender, none of these matter. If he decides a skill is something this country needs, that person will become one of the king's personal retainers. Kazuya states that if their gift is proven to be without compare, he will issue a certificate of peerlessness and a cash prize. People all over the kingdom, staring with shocked faces, suddenly erupt into cheers, happiness, and laughter at the king's new announcement. He mentions that they can nominate themselves, or, if they nominate someone else, the nominator will receive 3/10 of the reward. Addressing the gifted directly, he states, "Come shake my hand in the capital of Parnam before the broadcast ends." The broadcast was a big hit, as of the many that had applied. By the 4th day of judging, the 5 best talents stood in front of the king, those who have especially rare gifts. Kazuya addresses the kingdom live via broadcast in the throne room. Of the people who came in response to my summons, these 5 possess especially rare gifts. Out of the 5, all except 1 kneel to greet the king. Ludwin addresses the dark elf girl, stating that she is before the king, yet she refuses to kneel. Completely ignoring Ludwin, the dark elf states, "The warriors of her tribe do not bow their heads to outsiders, and women do not lower their heads before any but their husband. It is proof of chastity." Just when Ludwin is about to speak, Kazuya interjects, stating he does not mind. They are asking them to help the country, so there is no need to be uptight. Kazuya states, "You can all relax." Moving on, the Prime Minister, Marx, says they will now announce the gifts held by the 5, then award the prizes. The first is the dark elf from the god-protected forest, Madame Aisha Lidgard. Marx adds that she has proven herself to be remarkably gifted in her martial ability, proving truly fit to be the greatest in the kingdom. Kazuya asks whether she will help the kingdom later, as he knows dark elves are only loyal to their own kind. Aisha replies, "If the kingdom falls, the forest wouldn't be safe either," adding that some feel the dark elves need change, of which she is one. She addresses the king, stating she does not need the prize money. Rather, she asks to address him directly. At this, Ludwin, going to unsheath his sword, as well as Aisha, about to do the same, are both stopped by Kazuya. Kazuya lets her speak, whereupon Aisha explains, "Recently, there have been incursions into the god-protected forest by other races. They have been taking many edible wild plants along with the forest beasts. She understands there is a food crisis, yet if this continues, they will be the ones who starve. There have already been clashes, urging the king to stop the offenders." Kazuya thinks to himself, the food crisis is even more serious in the countryside. He accepts her request, stating they will help the countryside villages and also prosecute the intruders as poachers. Aisha thanks the king. Then, Kazuya asks, shouldn't they trade with the outsiders of the forest? Explaining they could use lumber from periodic thinning. Aisha asks, what is periodic thinning? Kazuya, taken aback, explains, periodic thinning is when trees grow too densely, blocking sunlight, stopping young trees from growing. If too dense, they restrict each other, leaving only old trees that are thin, frail, weak, and easily destroyed by snow or wind. If the sun can't reach the undergrowth, it dries, and the land can't hold water, causing landslides. After hearing all of the information about the maintenance of the forest, Aisha, who was previously against kneeling towards the king, knelt before him, pledging her lifelong loyalty, declaring, "From this day onward, she is his to use however he sees fit, body and soul, as his lover and warrior," both indirectly and directly proposing to the MC, finally asking him to visit the god-protected forest as soon as he can. She mentions that in recent years, all of the issues Kazuya described, the forest has been facing those issues exactly. Liscia wonders why this went unnoticed for so long. Kazuya declares, "They will visit the forest sometime soon." Second among the five is Hakuya Kwanmin. His gift is that he has memorized all of the laws of this country, and his knowledge and memory are without equal. Kazuya remarks, "His gift is splendid," adding, "If Hakuya wishes, he is ready to make him a bureaucrat." Hakuya responds, "The prize will be enough," admitting his uncle nominated him without asking him. Kazuya, keeping in mind that this man is fond of books, first inquires if his reading material is limited to law, to which Hakuya denies, asserting, he is fond of all types of books and genres. Kazuya proposes that he become the palace librarian, noting, "There are books there he wouldn't find anywhere else." Kazuya thinks it's better to keep someone as interesting as him close. Third of the five is Juna Doma, one of the most beautiful songstresses of this generation. Her singing, dancing, and beauty are unmatched. The public and king both blush just looking at this beautiful woman. Liscia pouts, staring at the king in jealousy. Kazuya replies, he has not forgotten his job, assuring Liscia she can stop glaring, feeling embarrassed and playful. Kazuya, being the Riz master he is, jokes, "Sometimes the heavens bestow two gifts, it seems." Juna exclaims, "He is too kind." Juna shares that the Doma family descended from the Loreleis, so singing is in her blood. Kazuya responds, he would very much like to hear her sing, suggesting she sing a song to lift the spirits of the nation. Juna confesses, she would love to, but clarifies, all of the songs passed down from the Loreleis in her family are sorrowful. Kazuya then pulls out his phone to recommend a song from Earth for Juna to sing. Juna asks, what the strange device is? Kazuya answers, it's a machine that plays music. Surprised that sound is playing from the device, Juna listens carefully. After one listen, she memorized the song and is about to perform it for the kingdom. Her performance truly boosts morale, and the people cheer, celebrating in happiness. After the show, Kazuya thanks Juna and notes he would like to turn the Jewel Voice Room into a studio so people can hear Juna sing more often. Juna is elated by this and asks to learn more songs from the king. Fourth of the five is Tomoe Inui of the Mystic Wolf race, and she has the exceptionally rare gift of being able to communicate with birds and beasts. Liscia remarks that the country of the Mystic Wolves is far north. Kazuya, realizing they lost their home due to the expansion of the Demon Lord's domain, pauses when Tomoe cuts in, asking if she can say something to the king. Speaking very quietly, he murmurs he can't hear her. Getting closer to the tiny wolf, he is informed of something that puts a serious expression on his face and quickly asks if she told anyone else, to which she answers that she had only told her mother. Thinking to himself that he must stay calm and not react, he declares to the kingdom that he is exhausted and would like to take a break, and, in the meantime, requests that Juna sing for the kingdom so they don't get bored, to which she agrees. Next, we see Kazuya, Liscia, Tomoe, Marks, and Ludwin enter his office for a private conversation about the information given by Tomoe. Kazuya reveals that Tomoe told him she spoke to a demon, which, up until now, was not even known to be possible, as demons were seen to be no more intelligent than mere animals. Tomoe clarifies that she was hiding after her village got attacked by a horde of monsters when a kobold found them, urging them to flee, implying demons have a will of their own. Suggestions to communicate with demons were postponed, as other nations learning this would cause chaos. Kazuya speculates that the Empire possibly does not know, and that they currently hold a monopoly on this information because only Tomoe could discover it. Kazuya states that other nations learning this gives him chills. The next priority was keeping Tomoe safe, meaning she needs residence in the castle. Marx notes that a non-royal living in the castle would draw scrutiny. Kazuya proposes adoption by the former king and queen, assuring Tomoe her family may also reside there. Liscia declares, excited, she always wanted a sister. Now that the pressing issue had been resolved, Kazuya makes his way back to the hall for the fifth gifted person. After thanking Juna for keeping the crowds entertained, they move to the final candidate. Fifth of the five is Pancho Panicotta, whose talent is eating and consumption. He traveled the world pursuing food, spending his fortune on bizarre and famous dishes, claiming, "If it's edible, I've tasted it." Kazuya greets his talent with excitement, professing gratitude for responding. Pancho, emotional, confesses he was mocked and insulted for gluttony, wondering if his indulgence has value. To solidify his stance, Kazuya bestows a new name, Ishizuka, a traditional title of expectation. Just as Kazuya gives Pancho his new name as a retainer, Hakuya cuts in, asking for a word with the king, professing he would now recommend himself before the king again. Hakuya notes he identified a use for Pancho's talent, but was curious to see if Kazuya would also recognize his potential. When Kazuya met Pancho's talent with the highest praise, Hakuya was full of glee, and so declares he would like to support Kazuya with wisdom. Kazuya remarks that it is bold of him to make such a claim, musing he is amused Hakuya has confidence enough to say so. Facing his prime minister, Marx, he assigns Hakuya into his care for a suitable role. Ending the broadcast, Kazuya addresses the five most gifted in the kingdom, exclaiming he will be counting on them, and is met with an enthusiastic reply. We see that some weeks have passed since the personnel announcement, and Kazuya holds a meeting with the five, along with Princess Liscia. Kazuya thanks everyone for coming. Hakuya adds that some might look down on a man who carries himself in such a way. Kazuya answers that if dignity can only be maintained by acting self-important, then he has no need for it, affirming he sees everyone here as his comrade. Juna adds that the king is too kind. Tomoe tilts her head, asking if she is the king's comrade too. Kazuya smiles warmly, saying that she is his little sister, and invites her to call him Big Brother from now on. Liscia cuts in, excited, exclaiming that she may be called Big Sister too. The siblings melt affectionately before being swatted on the head by Hakuya's paper fan, scolding them to give it a rest. Aisha retorts, shocked, asking how he can swat the king so casually. Eager to continue, Hakuya inquires why Kazuya gathered them today. Kazuya turns to Pancho, asking if he acquired what was requested. Pancho answers, yes, and thanks Kazuya for lending a royal wyvern, affirming the task took 2 weeks instead of 8 years it previously took him. Liscia tilts her head, puzzled, asking what was gathered. Kazuya answers that they are ingredients not commonly eaten in the kingdom. Kazuya outlines that their country is transitioning from cash crops to food crops, but the effects will not be seen until autumn at the earliest. Measures must be taken to prevent starvation until then, which is where these uncommon ingredients come in. Kazuya adds that other nations eat them, but this kingdom does not, so learning to eat them means there will be more to eat. The group moves to the cafeteria with the broadcasting jewel. Liscia, seeing the live audience of maids, guards, and castle staff, pauses, slightly startled, wondering if there are not too many people, also noting that the jewel broadcast is being used again. Kazuya answers that the goal is to introduce the custom of eating uncommon foods, so it is efficient to inform everyone at once, which is why he gathered the staff, and also why there are pretty girls present. Juna says it's an honor to get a compliment from him. Aisha blushes as she works to meet his expectations. Tomoe, slightly red, says she'll do her best, and Liscia, red and shy, asks if he means her too. Poncho puts a large sack of ingredients on the table, and Kazuya signals for the broadcast to start. People across the nation, full of excitement, say it's about to begin, adding that they never thought a jewel broadcast could actually be fun to watch. The broadcast starts. Juna and Poncho greet the kingdom, introducing the new program, The King's Brilliant Lunch. Poncho, extremely nervous, struggles to introduce himself. Juna remarks that there's no need to be so tense. Poncho apologizes and mutters that Juna is so confident. Juna mentions it's because she sings to customers at the Lorelei Cafe. Poncho tells her not to openly advertise the cafe. Juna then introduces the king, saying he will now explain the goal of the program. Kazuya pauses, clarifying that he's not king until the coronation, correcting himself to acting king. Kazuya addresses the kingdom, saying he wants to talk about the state of the nation. He mentions that the food crisis happened because of the switch from growing food to cotton. He adds that it's not only the farmers' fault, but also the merchants who pushed them to do it to sell their goods, the soldiers who benefited from those goods, and the royal family for ignoring it until it turned into a disaster. For this, he sincerely apologizes, bowing to the entire nation by broadcast. Everyone reacts in shock. It's unheard of for a king to bow to his people, and even more shocking that he's apologizing for something that didn't even happen during his reign, but during the former king's reign. Kazuya continues, saying the kingdom is switching back to food crops, and they hope to see the results in autumn or later. Until then, they thought about importing food, but other countries are in bad shape too. Since they have nothing to export to replace cotton, they can't secure foreign currency, and no country can sell what they don't have. Poncho asks if it's really okay to tell the people this. Kazuya replies that the more you hide, the more people doubt you, adding that his plan is to keep sharing info like this, because he wants the people thinking for themselves, asking, "What should we do? Are these plans right?" He wants them thinking with him. We see the people across the nation watching the broadcast, Kazuya's words genuinely moving them. They murmur that they've never seen a king like this. More comments spread through the crowd, saying this country is going to change. Kazuya addresses the nation, pleading for everyone to hold on until autumn. He tells them to go into the mountains, into rivers, into the sea, looking for food. Work together, seek help even if it stings your pride, because he wants everyone to survive until autumn. Kazuya stresses that when he says everyone, he means every last person. He warns them not to hurt each other in suffering, and not to abandon people who can't feed themselves. He says he wants families welcoming autumn's harvest side by side, and that this broadcast was made to give them some help towards that. To buy time until the food crisis is solved, they will be presenting ingredients that people don't normally eat in this country, and the ways to cook them. Kazuya cues Poncho to start, and when the first ingredient appears, Liscia and the other girls yelp in disgust. Kazuya, thrown off by the reactions, says that's an octopus. Juna agrees. Kazuya asks again, surprised they don't eat octopus here. Liscia groans that they're disgusting, but Juna adds that they're only eaten in the coastal regions and that they're actually amazing. Aisha's mouth waters. Kazuya claps his hands, eager to begin, and says he enjoys cooking, so he'll make it himself. He adds that boiled octopus is good, but it might be tough to convince people to try it. Kazuya then teaches the kingdom how to make takoyaki, showing how to prep the octopus, mix it into the batter, and serve it with sauces already available in this world. The girls try them, gushing about how insanely delicious they are, the kingdom reacting with equal excitement. Poncho brings out the next ingredient, gelin, a soft slime. Liscia asks what you can even make with it, since cutting the membrane makes everything spill out. Poncho adds that there's a method to keep them whole. Instead of slicing them, you lightly tap them, and 2 hours later, they can be cooked. Poncho then serves what he proudly names gelin udon, served in a mushroom and kelp soup broth. Kazuya and the girls try it, stunned that it actually tastes incredible, but their excitement crashes the moment Poncho reveals the next dish. Large locust tsukudani. Kazuya, hesitant but brave because it uses soy sauce, and he tries it. The familiar taste hits him like a truck, and he tears up. He learns that soy sauce, or as they call it here, hishio water, is made by the mystic wolves. He asks Tomoe if alcohol is also brewed from it, and she adds that there's a plant with many seeds used for making it. Kazuya realizes it's rice and practically lights up. Kazuya declares that he will give the Mystic Wolves a refugee district in Parnam and asks them to produce hishio water and bean hishio. Liscia asks if he's genuinely serious. Kazuya answers that with hishio water and bean hishio, he can make dishes from his old world. He asks if everyone wants to try them. Aisha instantly perks up, exclaiming yes, already drooling. Kazuya adds that maybe others won't react as intensely as Aisha, but he's sure they'll enjoy it too. Either way, it will boost the economy. Kazuya speaks to the kingdom again, saying he's still searching for the gifted. If a tribe has better food production methods, there's no reason not to bring them in. For the next 5 years, he grants the Mystic Wolves exclusive rights to hishio water and bean hishio, saying they will crack down on any illegal brewing by others. In 5 years, the monopoly will end, and the market will open. He urges them to build a strong economic foundation during that time. And with that announcement, Juna brings an end to the broadcast titled The King's Brilliant Lunch, thanking the kingdom for watching, adding that they have been the hosts, Junadoma and Poncho Ishizuka Panikata. The subjects are seen chatting as they return home, saying the broadcast was better than expected, adding that their young king seems easygoing and that the princess looked in good spirits. Some tease that they might just have an heir by next year. Hakuya and the king are shown walking to the office. Kazuya asks if everyone is celebrating the successful broadcast. Hakuya replies yes. Once they reach the king's office, Kazuya tells Hakuya they should get started. Hakuya begins the report on the surrounding nations, listing that to the north is the Union of Eastern Nations, to the west, the Principality of Amadonia, further west, the mercenary state Zem, to the southwest, the Republic of Purgis. Hakuya adds that 0 of the nearby nations are friendly, 4 are neutral, and 1 is hostile, and across the sea is the 9-headed archipelago Union. Kazuya asks which between Amadonia and Zem is the hostile one. Hakuya replies that relations with Zem have worsened, but not enough to call it hostile, confirming that the hostile nation is Amadonia. He adds that if Amadonia requested Zem for backup, they would likely send mercenaries. Kazuya thinks on Amadonia, recalling that they sent the kingdom an offer of support. Hakuya confirms that if they ask, Amadonia is ready to send troops to help subdue the 3 dukes, adding that they likely gave the same offer to the dukes too, and that this might be part of a larger plan to take control of part of the kingdom. The two exchange a knowing look, deciding to take advantage of the opportunity. Hakuya comments that this will save many of their people. Kazuya, voice low, warns that he will only do this one time, referring to their still unrevealed plan, quoting Machiavelli that doing something ruthless once and never again shows greatness, but doing it twice makes a tyrant. And a tyrant's rule always collapses. Hakuya comments that the author sees the world in a terrifyingly real way. Kazuya confirms that either way, he sees Hakuya's plan as an example of doing exactly that, so if they act on it, it must be only once.